Yep.
got time to just, I'll just fill you in on a few observations I have, if you don't mind.
Let me grab this from Jim here and I'll be right back.
Thank you for putting me on, commissioners. I'd just like to make a few observations about some of the gravel roads in the southeast corner of the county where I live. And there are things that, I'd like to wait for Russ here so he can address these here.
And for Jim to come back in.
And just to refer back, you guys were talking a while ago about that small gravel road, that corner you wanted to grade.
They wanted to what?
You wanted to grade a corner somewhere, well, just a few minutes ago, you were talking about somebody that wanted a
With the
road
state line.
graded, a state line down there. When I served as road supervisor, I think Alex Johnner told us that that is considered part of the roadway. That man was in back then, and I believe he had said that road was established long before the curve was put in,
Yeah,
when we had checked that out, so.
if you look at it on the map when you had it up, it's kinda obvious the way it must have been
Right.
at one time.
Because I think John Newsome used to grade that, and we were grading it, we didn't know it, and then Alex confirmed it, unless it's been taken off since then.
Well, he would just question if there's an easement on it or not, as of today, or we got, I don't know.
I'll look into it.
Huh?
I'll look
Look
into
into
it,
it,
just make
yeah.
sure we still have it.
So I was telling Russ, I just wanted to make some observations and things I'm a little concerned about on the road systems in the southeast corner. That's all I'm talking about, since the guys have been using the stingers or big points. So they've done one pass on some of our roads, and some have had two passes. And, you know, we've got some large holes there kinda going south on 22nd where the stingers were. We probably should get them corrected. They're kind of a danger spot. You know, we're dealing with some large rocks on the side of the road, things like that, that I'm hoping here in time will dissipate. And then slippery roads when it rains, because the clay is exposed in the middle. But the biggest concern I have, I noticed the first pass where Dave Ellingson made it, he grabbed that gravel and he stayed out of the grass, of course, and put it to the other side of the road. I don't know who was grading the second time, I didn't see who it was.
We have Justin Long on there right now.
Okay, he brought that gravel back over, so he only took about half of what Dave laid out, because I suppose he didn't want stinger bits in that grass to plug.
Okay.
So he brought that over, so we're kind of developing two windrows now on the right and the left side of our road. So if I just had an average, we have about a third of our gravel on the right side, a third on the left, and then about a third in the middle of the driving lane. And what I'm concerned about is our shoulders haven't been swept off. This would be the third year. So we have a lot of gravel, and it's way out on the tipping point. So as traffic's driving, it's gonna start to go over. If we don't get that sucked back in, and I don't think you could do it with a stinger, you probably have to go out with a straight and pull those in. The other thing I noticed following this gentleman a little bit the other day, I didn't know who it was with the stingers. I don't know if he quite realized, you put them stingers on the road and they're gonna cut it true. But being he's staying out of the grass, he's so far over to the center of the road, which you can't help it. When he puts his blade down, he's getting a lot of power pushing down, and they're cutting the crown of the road off. So we had about a 4 to 5% crown. You know, David always ran a pretty high crown. They're cutting a lot of the crown off of the road, especially over the hilltops and through the low areas. Kind of going up the hills or down the hills, it's not so bad. But if you would get a chance or whatever, look at that. But my biggest concern is that gravel being out on them shoulders.
And I have to take responsibility for that there, Francis, because when I came here, the situation and the gravel shortage that we had was pretty extreme. I mean, we were in dire need of gravel, you know, so I figured hope that this would work, and the reason we went with the stingers, or I did, I guess, was to retrieve the gravel on the roads. And I knew that the gravel on the sides of the roads was gonna not be bring back out like usually, like every spring you go pull your shoulders the best you can, bring that out. I knew that coming into this, but I instructed the guys to actually stay out of the edges, because one is the stinger bits plug up with grass, right, so it doesn't work. Two is that I was more concerned about, for years in the county system, from what I've seen, and again, this is just my predicament, but I've seen that we've had like 4 guys, 5 guys blading in 5 different directions. It was never consistent with, I believe, and I would like to see that all of our blades are operating in the same manner, doing the same thing. So I don't want one guy down pulling shoulders and then he requires more effort from graveling, stuff like that, because when you pull your shoulders, you're gonna get, more times than not, you get more dirt and mud than you do anything, from what I'm seeing. There are some times it works really well, but we don't have the manpower right now to dictate 2 guys driving truck, doing whatever, hauling gravel down to cover up this road, because it's gonna get really greasy. So I am responsible for what's going on, and I will take responsibility for that. Because I've instructed, it's not the blade operators, I've instructed them to do just what they're doing. Is it right in every direction? It probably isn't. Is it gonna solve every problem? No, I don't think it is. But as far as your hilltops, when you get to a hilltop, you really shouldn't have any crown on a hilltop. That hill should be flat on the top. And my reasoning for that is because if you start getting over a 4% crown in your road, I like to shoot basically for a 3%. And the reason I do that is because the quality of the gravel that we have in Emmons County is not the best. It's just not the best, you know. So I like a lower crown, because of the fact that the higher crown you got, the faster your roads drain off. That causes your gravel to wash off. So a lot of this, what they're doing out there, especially out there, is all me, and I take responsibility for it. I hope that within a couple rounds, this will all come around. I mean, we have a lot of rocks that we've picked. We've been out with a bobcat and 4 guys all day for a couple days just picking rock, you know, because we have a situation there too where the rocks and the roads are just, it's out of hand. I mean, and you can't make a nice smooth road when you're bouncing off a rock every 50 feet. So the problems you're coming with and stuff, like I said, I will take full responsibility for that. And I just hope that within a little bit of time, things turn around, and I think they will, considering Mother Nature helps and all the above, you know. I will address the gravel situation as far as spreading it out on the road a little bit better. I will talk to him. You know, from what I seen out there, I thought he was doing a pretty fair job, I'm gonna be honest with you. I was happy with what he was doing, but there's gonna be some areas that are gonna get greasy, slippery, and ugly till we get through this and get everything straightened out. So that's basically what I got, you know.
Yeah, and it's fine, I see what you're trying to do. It's where I'm really concerned is where he's not always doing it. It's just some places where he grabbed that windrow that David laid out, he was either squared up too much and it actually mushroomed over. Now, it's not off the road yet, but it will be.
Close.
It's just a matter of time as traffic drives, and you know, if you take an 18-foot wide roadway, you take a 1/4 inch of gravel off of there for 1 mile, it's 75 yards. It's 2.5 semi-loads. If you were to do it on 1,000 miles of Emmons County Road, 75,000 yards. So you start looking at $10 a yard, it's $750,000. It's probably $20 a yard nowadays, or 1.5 million. So, you know, the grade operators have to be conscious about not letting it fall off, because when we come with our mowers now, we're literally sucking that down, we're blowing it down into the ditch. So as for the grading part, what you're doing, you know, time will tell. You may just have to touch up the top of the hills where there never was a lot of gravel in the first place. But I'm just concerned with the gravel. We do have the good quality stuff, it doesn't get lost.
And there's no doubt, we can't afford to lose any amount of gravel. I mean, I agree 100% there. We just, you know, some of these areas, like I've said, the object was to come along with these picks and to retrieve the gravel out or back up to the top, which over the years has just gotten pushed down, and from what I'm seeing, most of the results are producing good gravel back, from what I'm seeing. Like I said, there's areas that still need gravel, always will need gravel, you know, and there's some areas where the roads are just gonna get like ugly slippery, because I told them to go in there and dig this up, and there's nothing to dig up, you know, it's just gonna be muck coming back up, so I'm just rolling the dice, hoping that we can get through this, and like I said, I'm just trying something a little bit different, and I still have confidence that it'll come through and work, I really do. It's gonna take a little effort from everyone, all the landowners. I mean, if someone can come out and pick a few rocks here and there, that would help. But it's gonna be a process, it ain't gonna happen this month or next month. I mean, this is probably a 1 to 2 year deal to get this stuff straightened out again, you know, is what I'm looking at. But are we wanna lose any gravel? Do we wanna lose any gravel? No, absolutely not, and I will go out there and definitely take a look at that.
Yeah, and like I say, it isn't everywhere, but if I don't come up and say it now, if you got about 2 weeks and then the grass is gonna be that tall, you can't retrieve it, and I mean, if you end up making some windrows, we don't care, cause by July it'll melt down, it's not the end of the world, but
We see it over in another county, Francis, over east.
what's that?
They've got disc mounted on the front, where they're cutting and bringing that gravel up and cutting the grass, and then they let it lay to dry. And then
That
they'll
looks
come back.
slick.
Huh?
That looks slick.
It works slick, but it's,
Back to this deal too, is I was assuming that the gravel, I knew the gravel's there, and I was thinking it was gonna stay there till next year. I didn't really have a concern of it leaving anywhere. I thought what's in the grass will stay in the grass is kinda what, we're probably gonna sacrifice some, and like I said, we had a meeting this morning just to talk about all this as well. So, there's difference of opinions, and I don't think any of them are wrong, I really don't. I mean, it's gonna take a few things. One of them is Mother Nature is gonna have to help us, there's no doubt, which she always does, you know. And a few other things, we definitely, some of the blade operators don't have a lot of experience, so they're running around these roads. I mean, they're doing good, I think they're coming along just fine, but it's gonna take a little time for everything to kinda come together, you know, so. I just ask for some patience and some understanding, and I think we can get through it, hopefully.
I've even heard some, Russ, nothing against anybody, where we're blading and nothing what's happened, but yeah, I'm gonna say it. They said, why are we leaving windrows again? Cause they got it in some areas in the bellies, where the water's being held onto the roadbed, and they go actually out with a spade and throw it aside so it drains out, or they hit it with a pickup tire
You know,
to drain it out.
And the reasoning behind the windrow situation again here, guys, is for years, it depending on the superintendent, one guy wanted a windrow, one guy didn't want. To me, and like I said, I don't know everything, but in order to cut them roads sufficiently, you're gonna end up with a windrow, because if you don't have a windrow, you can't cut the road. So I would like to get out and go at it hard for the first couple months here, and then back off with straight edges again is kinda my plan. Once we can get the roads straightened out, you know, some roads are worse than others. I mean, the Crown, I get all that. I'm hoping that the blade operators are able to decide what to do and what not to do in that situation, but they shouldn't be cutting the Crown out of the road. I'm trying to go after the wheel tracks more, and the rocks, the holes that have been there for 10 years that people have been bouncing over. I'm trying to dig some of that up to get rid of some of that and go at it with a smooth surface, and then start bringing the outside back in, so.
It's a tough deal, it's a community deal. I
Well,
think like this rock and these surfaces, people just have to come together, say, these are our county roads, you know? Let's go out and help, and we'll pull them out with skids.
There's no issue with that, is there? Say I wanna go out with my loader and dig a few of them out, or
No, you can have them all.
I didn't want somebody to hit the hole.
But it's been in the years past, I was told, when you try to make an improvement, they say, "Darren,
Well, I see some
stay off the
of
road
that,
from a liability standpoint.
Neighboring county.
Neighbor's gonna scream, and
yeah,
he's still coming after you," and I said, "You serious?" He said, "Yeah, stay home, you know?"
I probably wouldn't recommend digging rocks out of the road, But, I mean, if you see one in the
Pick
windrow or
it
something,
up, yeah.
Pick them out, yeah.
I got a few I should pick.
that would help us out quite a bit.
Well, the big concern that I hear, and I'd rather bring it here than say it in an elevator or a cafe, because it
Right.
doesn't do no good there, but guys moving up and down these roads, heavy planter semis,
Oh, yeah.
and all of a sudden, you didn't expect that rock, and you hit it,
Yeah,
and it just does damage to vehicles and stuff.
it does.
But you were talking about the disc over east, it's kind of interesting, you know, we just go 2 miles and we're in McIntosh County.
Yep.
And this year, they invested in a front mount disc.
2 of them, I think, didn't you?
I'm not sure, I just seen
4 of them?
four of them, yeah. And anyway, Mike Bosch runs the southeast corner.
Yeah.
And he has been out all spring long, either using his disc or his moldboard. But he has done an absolute beautiful job. He has sheared off all them shoulders. He's got some tough roads like we do.
Yeah.
But he has disced them up, there's times he doesn't use it. He's so far ahead of his schedule, it looks to me like he's double rounded all of his roads. So I had called Chris last week, their road supervisor, where my in-laws live. I popped a bunch of rocks out of the road last year, cleaned it up, and I asked Chris if I could do the other 3/4 mile. Well, it took a day later, Mike was out there, he rolled that entire minimum road up, and it looks beautiful. So,
We were down there, Russ and I, we were just on the Emmons County roads, and then Mike happened to be on a corner, just north of, what's his, the Meyer? His wife's a postmaster. Just to the south of his place he worked, she worked as a postmaster.
oh,
south
probably
at
Gerard
Strider.
Meyer, maybe,
Pardon?
who was it?
I don't know, he's a dark-haired guy, he works out in the oil fields,
Oh, I don't
Paul's
know.
Water or whatever.
Oh, Myron Weigel.
Weichel, there you
Okay.
go. And Mike was working there on those roads.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were also down there, was that yesterday, the day yesterday, correct? When we were over, he comes out of Napoleon, one of the blade operators, and they had discs, the shoulders also.
Mm-hmm.
And he was with a straight edge. It was unreal, right, Russ?
Yeah.
What he was doing on them roads.
Yeah.
That's some of the nicest blading yesterday that I mean,
That we both
Mike down
witnessed.
there is doing a heck of a, I seen what he's doing with that disc, and I would like to have, like, can we have 6, 7 of them?
That'd be nice.
Keith Lindbergh. You know,
Well, I think we need to start
What's his
one
name?
at a time and just
Start
give them,
couple of them
maybe we
anyway.
can afford it.
blonde-haired guy, bearded up.
I think
Only been
Campbell,
doing it for
they
6
go around,
years,
do
he
them
said.
all.
Okay.
And yeah, phenomenal.
Well, if you ever question the fact of should you spend money on discs or not, just use the numbers I just gave you on losing a
Yeah.
1/4 inch of gravel.
That's
And
for
what
sure.
we always look at the small picture, but if you take the 1,000 or 1,100 miles of gravel road you got in the county, you can pay for discs in a hurry.
In a long time, yeah, short order.
And then your roads don't get so crazy rough either, you don't bring
Yeah,
that.
and you're
sod.
taking care of that curb you're talking about as well for drainage and all that stuff at one time, you're taking care of all that.
All of it.
Yeah.
So I mean, it is a good deal, and, yeah,
But anyway, that's all I got. I appreciate it, guys, so.
Thank you, Francis.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
See ya.
Yep,
Russ,
Thanks,
squeezing
Russ.
that budget at the end of the year,
Yep,
maybe
yeah.
you can get a couple there.
well, I think we should be looking at it, yeah.
You guys wanna finish up?
Yeah, I'm ready.
No, I'm gonna stay here all day, yeah, what the hell, yeah, I'm gonna finish up, let's go.
We're gonna
Take lunch, come back to two things.
So let's come back to 2 items, abatement for the 2024 primary residence credit.
Thanks, Russ.
Yeah, you Thank you, Russ.
Thanks,
guys.
Yeah, I gave you guys all a letter this morning from Brian
Is that the
Crocus.
one? Yeah.
So what happened is when we did that, when they applied for the PRC, the state turned them down because it was in a trust. And
Oh,
the
yeah.
trusts were not supposed to be included. Well, now the legislators met and they decided to include the trust, and we can go back now and give these guys a credit. So, these are the ones that we have that qualify for the $500 PRC that did not get it because it was in the trust, that are now gonna be able to get it. So I have to certify this out to the state by the 16th, and then we'll get the money on in June, and then I'll refund these guys their $500. So, Brian Crocus just said that he wanted action by the commissioners, that we're gonna take care of this. If you guys just wanna make a motion to approve that the chairman signs this, then that's all we need to. I don't know why he wants this, but he does.
Is there any more discussion?
Tax assessor looked at this and it all makes sense too, or
Tax assessor doesn't deal with the PRCs.
that doesn't have anything to do with it? Okay.
I do that.
This is your department.
So you took a look at it and happy with it?
Yeah, well,
Okay.
actually, they had a lot more people on here, but some of them had already gotten the money and some of them were farm exempt, and so
Oh.
I called them yesterday and they said remove them, so I did.
Okay.
Is
So
there a
I'll
motion or
make that motion.
Jim Adler's making a motion to accept.
Okay.
Is there a second to it? Miller makes a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then you just wanna sign the front there,
Just sign the front.
and then I'll,
No, I don't want
sign up.
it. Just kidding.
Here, James, if you wanna ask this, this is our code stuff,
There you go, Mark.
thank you very much. And then these minutes need to be signed too.
And all we got left is zoning ordinance updates.
Oh, yeah.
What, from,
What's
excuse me. Article
They just sent it
6,
to
pages
me and
15
I
through
just
18,
gave it to you
conditional
guys
use
copies,
requirements.
the 10-year plan they have us
Okay.
file with the PRC or the public service, I guess.
Oh, that's, battery view.
You want this back also?
Energy storage.
What do we need to do here on this Crowley Flint deal?
She said they just sent out.
They just sent it to me and I just made copies for you guys, you don't have to act.
We don't have to do nothing on this, okay?
Just
I think it's just
information
proof
you-
that they submitted it to the Public Service Commission.
Yeah. Yeah, okay.
4-H girls are not coming
No.
in. That's it.
Except this.
Except this here.
Page what?
15 through 18.
Yep. I read it.
I did too.
I have a feeling this conditional use permit portion was probably gone through with a fine tooth comb there when the wind turbines and with all the stuff that we've had activity wise, and I'm sure you guys looked at this pretty hard, not? No?
Well, I came on after the project was already permitted for the wind farm, so
Okay.
that was.
So were you?
I was here when they were building it,
Okay.
you know, and then we
I
did
didn't
have
know
some
that.
different setbacks that were, you know,
Well, was that pushed hard on setbacks also? The wind?
well, there wasn't really a push, well, there was, I mean, NextEra opposed changing anything to the setbacks, but their project wasn't affected. The next project would be affected.
It would be.
Right, because that was, we had done it after the permits were already approved,
Oh, sure.
where we had modified the setbacks a little bit, but so yeah, we haven't actually had a project even apply for a permit since we changed the setbacks, but that, to my knowledge, wasn't the reason for it. The reason was is they couldn't get the easements for the second project, that was what I was told. 'Cause they did have an Emmons Logan too, that was already kind of proposed, and it sounds like they had a hard time getting enough easements to make it feasible, so
Okay.
that's what I was told.
Okay.
I was told that by other landowners that were approached, that they were told that, I don't know if they abandoned their easements or they just kinda told them they're mothballing them or whatever it was, and so. Cause actually, Emmons County, I don't believe had a setback for wind turbines, we were just defaulting to the state,
State rule.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so. But,
Is there anything that you guys see within, or Joe, that you see anything with it that needs to be changed?
I didn't have any notes, I guess. I read through it.
the only thing that I would suggest is that, if you go on the Emmons County website, we actually have 2 conditional use permits. We have the conditional use permit, and then we have what's called an industrial conditional use
Right.
permit. And even relaying to the decisions we've made just recently, that was to the industrial conditional use
Right.
permit. Which, my interpretation of that is, like, an industrial project, you know, your major energy projects, your multi-million-dollar, several thousand acre major projects would fall under what the industrial conditional use permit was. And the reason for having two permits, from what I can tell, is there are the occasions where you need a conditional use permit for a smaller project. Like, one thing that's happened before is I think somebody wanted to put like 4 camper pads down at Cattail. But that wasn't allowed in like a recreational, it didn't meet the, it was too many, or it wasn't, or it was too small, there was some reason why it didn't fit our ordinance. So then if it doesn't fit the ordinance, you have to do a conditional use permit. So the idea was, is basically, there's like a little one for your modest, small issues, and then there's your larger one, which is basically got a different fee and just a little bit different process, and that's for what you consider like an industrial project. So my opinion is I don't really mind that system, but we probably need to clarify just what, so we're not leaving it to these companies to be like, wow, ours doesn't fit that, it fits this, and it's like, well, that really isn't your interpretation, that's ours.
Yeah.
So we probably need to clarify in a subsection here what the difference is between the two permits, or if we're not gonna do that, then we probably need to consider just having one. It just, you know, which, I like the idea of having maybe just a smaller fee and something for just your smaller, in comparison, and then your industrial one probably is gonna have a little more work on our part, it's gonna have more due diligence and oversight, and should probably have a more valuable permit fee in relation to the size of the project. So, that would be my only consideration, would be, you know, how do we, you know, properly amend the conditional use requirements, so that way we're getting the right entities applying for the right permit.
Well, this year, I just read this B, and where's it at, 6B, A and then B, on the fee like for seismic. That's, you know, that's big, that's commercial. I just, well, I don't know if I should say it online or not. I thought like $1,200 it should be instead of a $250 fee for something like that.
Well, I think the one
And I
thing,
think it's
just,
still cheap.
just for open and for discussion, is even NextEra admitted at the last meeting that $250 for a permit fee is inadequate. And that's why they were even offering to basically pay a modified fee.
Yeah.
My only difference in that opinion is they were trying to put it under traditional conditional use permit. I would categorize their project as industrial, and would totally scale it differently, so our current fee is 3% of the total project, which varies greatly from what they consider their permit fee, and so, and just to be fair, cause I mean, I think NextEra has been totally reasonable in their approach to this project, and I don't wanna, you know, create giant roadblocks, but even relating to the projects we talk about, our own road projects.
Right.
It's just like a business or anything, if you're not creating equitable revenue for what you're doing to be able to do the things you need to do, you go out of business. We can't, you know, try and have these scenarios where we're trying to find money all the time, and then we're granting multi-million-dollar projects for $250 permit fees. That's not, I mean, if you wanna go reasonable on building permits, so you got people building houses in the county, I'm fine with that. These mega projects, even they admitted that's a small fee, like there needs to be a equitable fee where it's like, holy cow, you're building $100 million project, you know, you should be getting in the thousands of, or some of the tens of thousands on a permit fee, and I don't think anybody would disagree with you, and if you look at a lot of what we call developed counties, they have a far more sophisticated fee structure to be adequate, because these projects take our time, that it takes courthouse administration, road facilitation, the sheriff's department, traffic control. After the project's built, any other issues we have to inherit, those permit fees need to reflect in some of that. Not only just tax dollars that may or may not come in, but those permit fees should be adequate enough, so that way we're meeting that equitable need. It should be fair, because those kinds of projects are always championed as rebuilding your infrastructure, building your roads up. Well, we have road projects, we're short of money, and then our permit fee is way too low. So, I'm not suggesting gouging, but at the same time, right, and that's my point, is like, I'm just like, they can pay it, but it needs to be equitable, it needs to be fair, and I think that's probably my biggest concern with the conditional use permits, is we need to probably be more specific in which kind of permit it is, and then having adequate fees that are appropriately assessed to these projects. One little camper spot for some locals at Cattail versus a wind farm on the east side, those are two different deals, and the fees should not be the same, so.
And I guarantee you, that fee at 3% will not hinder them from coming to this county.
Right, and even if that wants to be,
No, it won't hinder.
my suggestion on the percentage is we maybe wanna put some kind of a floor and a ceiling. If we wanna keep the percentage, but
Up to
I think, because we don't wanna be a roadblock where it's like, okay, now you're looking at this massive project and you got a $40 million permit fee. That's probably, and so you just, I think we need to have some kind of a minimum and maybe some kind of a maximum so that these companies know, like,
This is where we're at.
right, because if you're doing business in Emmons County, you're like, okay, this is the size of our project, this is okay, we're way past the cap, we know what the fee will be. And then if you're in that middle range, then we should have a percentage between the, just whatever fee would be adequate, but I would say as far as reading the language, the wind setback was kind of addressed with that, and that's not a part of this book, so that has to be, and then the changes we made to like the pipeline setbacks, that kind of modified some of this stuff that I feel is probably out of date, so we don't have to mess with that,
Right.
but we probably just need to either look at some of the other different processes, and then also the fee structure and the specifications for the different
So
conditions.
most of this electric transmission facilities, water, gas, oil, or coal,
Which one do you want, Joe?
would be under industrial.
I mean, that's where, like I said, as a board, we need to probably specify, like,
Or
because,
maybe,
well, and the reason why I say that is because accepted uses in like agricultural land is like, it needs to be, it's a permitted use, or how did that work? Conditionally permitted use are some of these facilities that are,
yeah,
so some people are interpreting that, well, it's conditionally used under ag land. So they're saying that if they're modifying ag land, they're not modifying industrially zoned land, so they don't fall under the industrial use permit, but that's not how we're interpreting it.
right.
We're interpreting it as industrial, meaning the scope of the project,
Yeah.
not the zoning of the land.
Yeah.
And that's what we need to nail down, because that's where the confusion might come in, because, again, you're gonna have a difference between a couple $100 permit fee and maybe a couple $100,000 permit fee. I can tell you which one they're gonna defer to at first and tell us to say no, like, so, we need to just iron that out in the beginning, so that's part of the process and the negotiation, so. And again, I don't think we have to have it nailed down to the specific letter, but I think a general overview of like, whether you put a size of the project financially, or size of it by acreage in there, as some, or you just specifically, basically anything with, basically where it's not like a single person entity doing it,
I'd be curious just for guidance, what like Burley and Ward County, Grand Forks, Cass, just out of curiosity, I mean, they deal with this a lot.
right?
So they probably have quite the setup, not that but even just for guidance, to
Yeah.
find out what their, fees and definitions for conditional and ag and industrial, I'd be curious if we could.
A lot of times they have it right online.
Oh, sure, I bet you could go
I
online.
mean,
Because
just,
there's such
just for
different
comparison wise, I mean, these guys deal with a lot more, companies coming in and building here and there, Burley and Morton, probably Burley substantially more, but just for guidance, I think.
Another good county that might be a good comparison might be Oliver, and we know Commissioner Berger a little bit, some of us have gotten to know him, like, just curious even, like, that'd be a good one to reach out to, cause they're kinda like us, they're a little more rural, don't have a ton of big cities, but they still have a lot of projects, so
Right.
they'd have to have some interesting input, just, cause like, Burley's hard, cause they got your Bismarck and your kinda your metroplex, they have maybe a little more specific stuff, but maybe a rural county with some projects like we got going on would be a good one, I mean, several counties would be fine, but the suggestion would be that we definitely need to review and get more specific on this, and especially the fee needs to be more structured.
At a dinner last winter, that they put on, the engineering firm, There was a guy from Washburn that did a lot of the easement and setbacks,
Oh,
and
okay.
he's a commissioner. And he wrote a lot of the verbiage for that county in Washburn, which would be what, McLean County, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. Sharp young guy.
Oh,
Something
I'm
else,
gonna try to get a hold of his name through Ron Wagner. Yeah. And maybe he can help us out with some of that too.
something else I think should be under the industrial use permits is, Bitcoin centers and AI techs too, we have nothing down about that.
I mean, just judging by the size of the project I'm hearing about in Ellendale, I would definitely
Yeah.
agree that, I mean, that's a major project, I mean, there's just,
Big money involved for us.
Yeah. Well, you take
What do they
3% of
pay?
that cut.
Quarter of an inch, 40 million bucks.
well,
I don't know, I just know it's major undertaking down there, lots of, I mean, just, it's the kind of stuff that counties like us just are not used to seeing.
No,
It's not, you know, I
And
mean,
it could happen to us so easily with the Missouri River,
yep,
just to the west, and the power infrastructure out there.
we were talking about that last night at the meeting,
Oh,
about, if they bring nuclear and they need a lot of water, would they put that out along the river with all these transmission lines we have?
I'm sure they would. Do lots so in Beaver Creek.
well, I mean, the one tool that we do have in our arsenal, which, I mean, we've done it before, and that's why I was gonna add too, that we should probably look into some solar requirements, since that was kind of
Yeah,
the intention of
yeah.
the moratorium. But that's been a common theme for counties, is you're going through this process, a project that you've never touched comes through,
yeah,
and then they're kind of putting pressure on you to approve a permit, the only thing to do is just to do a temporary moratorium, 6 months to 2 years, or, you know, I know Morgan County did it with their carbon capture project, the air-to-air deal or whatever they
Oh,
call
yeah.
it.
They
And,
stopped that, did they not?
well, it's basically, they did a moratorium, so they didn't know what to do with it, and it's a first of its kind. You know, this next air project with a battery is a first of its kind, I mean, I don't see a huge issue with their project in that regard, but it's enough where, that, you know, we're gonna kinda be the guinea pig for a project like that, just like Morton County was for the air, so it's perfectly reasonable to just, you know, if, like, same thing with nuclear or something, if something comes in where you just absolutely don't have any zoning for it,
right,
it seems to me, even by the courts, it's totally acceptable to basically just be like, we're not even looking at it till we get a chance to check it out.
Well, the PSC will.
Well, it depends, well, you know, I mean, if you're not getting any help from the Association of Counties, or, yeah, we talked
Depends
before.
depends who's funding it. For the PSC, it seems like.
Well, I can tell you one thing right now, it's not gonna be long. These other industries are gonna figure out
Oh, yeah.
how to clamp on like pipelines and everything has, and if you get it to where all of a sudden the PSC is the only,
Source to
the
stop.
only zoning ordinance essentially,
right. You don't
I mean,
wanna say-
this book might be null and void in 10 years, because they're just,
Yeah.
they keep pushing that, and that's again the reason for piggybacking onto our conversation with the association, it's like, the counties have all this expectation to be setting up the zoning and doing all this stuff and protecting its citizens, and then as soon as you get to a certain point, a certain industry has enough pull with the state that all of a sudden you're swept under the rug, and that's not, so, I mean, it's, unless you comply,
Right,
With what they want.
unless, you know,
then why?
unless
Why
whatever
do we waste
minimal
our
amounts
time?
they say is okay with you, then you don't have a problem, but as soon as you disagree with anybody, then all of a sudden you're considered an extremist, so.
Yeah,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would say just an overall note would probably be specifying the requirements for the different permits, and then probably looking at the fee, just nailing it down, and I think it'd be great to look at a couple other counties that have the
Yeah,
prices that
local
are.
sources.
Right, so we don't have to reinvent the wheel, we can kind of cherry pick the stuff we like
Right.
and kind of modify some stuff ourselves and get it to where, I mean, we want projects in the county, I don't think anybody disagrees with that. But we also have a obligation to make sure that we're defending our citizens and also getting, you know, fair value for our permitting. I don't think that's unreasonable at all.
Right.
Joe, if we put requirements on AI centers or Bitcoin centers to run with 100% green renewables, is that possible for us to do?
You have to submit that in writing, let me research it a little bit. Jesus.
That would be an interesting scenario.
Huh,
Well, they did it.
I gotta raise the glasses on that right eye.
If we were in Minneapolis, they would require it.
You know what though, when you do something like that, I mean, these mining and data centers, there's always that potential of a gasification plant in Emmons County that was already looked at one point. If you put the renewables on it, all you get is more of these giant dinosaurs out here. You know what I'm saying? We're better off not doing that, trying to push them towards, say, natural gas. They need the water, that's why they looked at Emmons County the
Oh,
first
yeah.
time around.
Up with George
Because
Waller.
we had rural water, we had the river, you know what I mean? So if you do something like that, then we take ourselves, I mean, my opinion is if we have room, somebody wants to sell some land for a data center, so be it, because the more power we use, the better chance we're gonna get.
But there's not enough power.
Well, that's why they have to build these plants.
That's why that's.
And those are very good paying jobs, these plants, you know, they're only 15, 20 people, that was a 3 turbine fired gas plant that they looked at putting in here.
That's
been
Basin.
years, yeah, Basin Electric, I was on the council, that was before your time, probably even living here, but it would have been huge for Emmons County, just because, once again, you go back to that energy tax, and they had easement, I mean, they had leases, they had hard-year leases, and they had everything set up. It just, when the Bakken oil field kinda went down tubes, so did the need for all this electricity, cause that's where it was gonna go, so. I mean, in my opinion, we're better off not wanting it all green, because then we're gonna get more, like I said, of this crap over here, and more solar power, which we don't really wanna have to deal with, and.
I don't think they can get enough for
Go
you.
east of Rapid City.
Well, probably not, but I'd rather see a gasification plant come to Emmons County and get 15 or 20 high
Oh, I know,
$75,000 to
well,
$125,000 a year
Aaron
jobs.
was,
Yeah, you know what I mean?
They had to deal with
Because they still have, my understanding is that Basin Electric still has leases.
Oh, yeah.
Out there for that plant that they originally looked at putting in here, they secured the land. They just
We seen
abandoned the
them
project
in,
because of,
we were
the
in
little bit of need
Holland
for-
last
Center
year.
of the river.
yeah,
Just
well,
all
the need for power at the Bakken,
And
that's where it's
Australia
going.
year before,
That
that's a lot
decreased
of
there.
Is there?
Yeah, tons
Miles,
of,
can we bring up that
I think if you
quote I
get,
gave you about that?
you know, like in
Um,
Walworth County there, they were talking, that's
I
a
mean,
big,
do we not,
big
do
one.
we not have the money?
They were worried about changing,
Well, it's not in the budget,
changing,
but they're here.
I think we can.
the local weather, you know, changing temperature.
Because-
Cause I mean, I think we should.
Word. Yeah.
I remember the one John gave.
Who
was
knows?
$100,000,
You don't?
So this is actually a little less.
They already gave it.
No, I think we should.
No, they did,
They're just, hey,
What's the total?
yeah, money.
83,729.
How much?
83,729.
what's that?
When we're done with this, I have one other alibi.
Do we have anything else to discuss in this year? Probably not, do we?
Well, we'd have to table that. for
We'd have
now.
to table this 15 through 18, correct?
Well, I think,
Come up with some more
I would
information.
say as a board, we'd probably wanna just maybe put it on the agenda again, and we're just still reviewing it.
And review
That's
it.
the way I would look at it, and then everybody kinda maybe
Do a little
contact some
research,
people or go
Get some
places.
feedback. and
Yeah, I
come
think it'd
back
be a good idea if we all had a little something of an input from them.
Dunn County has some good permits.
Sure.
Oh, there
Do
you
they?
go.
Yeah.
Would we call it a little skin in the game?
Yeah.
I have
heard
no
that
idea what you're
term.
talking about.
What do you
Yeah,
call
you
it?
do.
Been watching the legislature too much, yeah, but I think it would be a good idea to just probably leave it on, it's just an ongoing,
Yeah.
Okay,
you know, we'll just
leave it on
review
the
it again,
agenda,
I
and
think
we'll
so,
continue on the zoning ordinance
I
deal.
think so.
Article 6, pages 15 through 18. Come up with some more info.
Yep.
Coming back.
Yep.
Other than that, there's nothing else to cover, is there?
So this is, as you all know, the city of Linton is doing an overlay, they're doing some milling, they're doing all kinds of projects. There was a quote last year from Moore Engineering for $100,000 to do some of the county's roads, this frontage road on the north side, all these little streets, and I've got pictures of all of them. I got a new quote from Moore Engineering, and believe it or not, from last year to this year, it went down. It's now $83,729, that is 100% on, Highway 13, 7th Avenue Southeast to the Catholic Cemetery, 79th Street Southeast, and then Aspen Avenue was a 50-50 with the city, that's just this little, by the Dollar General.
Okay.
But anyway, these guys are here doing it this year. just visiting with Marla's here, we do have, prairie dog funds we could probably use on this.
It's a project, I
It's a project, and I'm just wondering what your guys' thoughts are. I know last year you guys talked about this, it was budgeted, but then it was cut out of the budget. It's not gonna get any cheaper than when you have the guys here to do it. And I think they're thinking they're going to be doing it. So we should either take action on it or let them know that we don't want it done. And like I said, I don't think the price is gonna get any cheaper than when they're here doing the whole city. So, I'm just bringing it up, if you guys wanna look at the map, this is the new quote.
Did Lytton City agree to do it, if we do it, or?
You know what, I don't know, I talked to Aaron about it last year a little bit, and I don't know what the county, with that 50-50 one, I think Aaron told me that the county decided they'd just do their county roads 100% and be done with it, but I think that Aspen Avenue is probably already in the quote for Emmons, for Linton as well, so I mean, if we do a 50-50 on that, they're, planning on starting in June. So it's kinda now or never to let them know we wanna do it. Once they're done with the crosswalks and all that, they'll start doing, I think, some milling, and then the overlays will begin.
But what would we do to these out here, what would we do? Mill it and then relay it?
None of these
They're
are out
broke
of town.
Yeah.
Okay.
None of this, so
Well,
this
they
is.
are actually.
Well, they are, none of these are to the shop, or the golf course.
Right, no, these ones would be like right on the north side of town, the
Right.
first turn into Linton, and then
By
the
the
one that
church.
goes by Kenner's or the old Senex.
Okay, yeah.
Basically what happened is once they exit city limits, Linton and Emmons County used to kinda cost share. Well, basically, I think a year ago or so, I think it was either Skylar and Tyler kinda were getting together a little bit, and then Gary Holm, I think, went to the city board. And they kinda were like, well, why are we cost sharing if it's outside of city limits? Which, in our agreement, was like, well, yeah, it's a paved road, everybody views it like a town road, but it's technically a county road. In a lot of rights, it could almost turn to gravel at that point, well, we don't wanna do that. So, cause we were renegotiating a new agreement, because everybody was like, well,
Yeah,
cause the city
tar
still
ring,
doesn't,
snow
the
removal,
city
all
will
that,
still
the
help
whole
out
deal.
with the tar rimming and the snow removal like they were, they just do
They just
what's reasonable,
help each
but when
other
it
out.
comes to projects, it was kind of falling on the county once it leaves city limits, which I didn't think was unfair, cause it's like that in every other part of the county. I mean, you get outside of Strasburg or outside of Hazelton, them are county roads that we pave and chip seal, so
Going
Linton
south
should
of
get the same
town.
treatment, so I don't see any problem with, like you said, if there was 100-some thousand last year and it's down to 83, it's probably as cheap as you're gonna get it, and they're doing the project in a couple weeks, and I think us doing it in tandem with the city makes perfect sense. Not that we're chip sealing it 2 years later after they're done, like that doesn't.
Yeah, the only other thing, like I had mentioned, is I believe the state will be chip sealing Highway 83, or next year, but that's just a pass through for the most part. I mean, here they're
Do
actually.
they
taking
chip
down-
seal anymore?
Well, they're doing an overlay, or they're doing
Yeah,
something.
they
I
chip
think.
seal.
Well, I know, because what I mean is, the last time everybody said it was gonna happen, they ground that 3/4 of an inch off and they put that sealer on, and that
Yeah.
was way different than any of us expect, not saying it was good or bad, but like, you always heard like chip seal,
Yeah.
and that thing was way different.
Well, and so that might not fall in, they're redoing 83.
Sure.
So that's gonna, if it's not the same thing, we probably don't wanna wait and find out that.
That's what I'm wondering, just cause I mean, is that the new way of doing things, or are they still gonna do the traditional chip seal, but I mean, it makes sense to just finish out these paved roads when they're literally gonna be paved, little chip sealing right up to them. And, I mean, for the most part, I mean, them roads are used by, everybody, but I mean, it's city residents, it's kind of like, it's almost considered like a city street, it should get done at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'm sure we.
So what do you wanna do? Do you wanna make a motion to go along with it or what?
Yeah.
Probably have to.
Well, the first question to ask would be, I mean, are we certain
Do we
that
have
we
the
can
money?
utilize either?
Well, the prairie dog money, we have to
Right.
use it for road projects, we
Yeah.
can't use it for maintenance, and
Mm-hmm.
I could report it as overlay project, I don't know why it wouldn't cover.
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine with using some of the prairie dog money for it, it's perfect sense what it's made for, so I mean, if that's what we're gonna do, as long as we're in agreement that we have the funds to appropriate for it, I make the motion that we,
And I would
Accept
second- I would
Moore's-
second it.
I make the motion we accept Moore's estimate for the county contributions to the Linton Street project, which is Emmons County's cost.
Right.
That's all they got it stated.
Did I
we've
have
got
that
the-
copy then?
Yeah.
Yep,
And you got a second to it?
I'll second that, yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carried.
Are you gonna let them know?
Yeah, I'll go straight to City Hall and give them the
Well,
update
I mean,
straight
like
away.
you said, they're gonna be here, what the heck?
Yeah, pretty quick.
Yeah, I just didn't want this to go to the wayside and then 4 streets weren't touched and now it's like $250,000 because they're not here and they're, you know.
Well, mobilization cost is a real thing,
Yeah.
and that, you know, you
Can I have
save.
that copy though?
Sure.
And I will mention to you guys also, More Engineering came to the city and said if anybody was interested in a blacktopping, anything that these guys do, some concrete work, these guys, my understanding from Moore was they would be willing to entertain any of that for anybody that needed it done personally.
Oh, like
The city hall would have the number, Sharon Jenkins would have the number at City Hall.
Sure.
I don't know
You
about.
gotta pay for it though?
What?
You gotta pay for it yourself?
Well, yeah, you gotta pay for it yourself,
Not even-
but they're here.
Me and Jim are out.
And I'll tell you, these concrete guys, not that Chris doesn't do a good job, and I'm sure he's probably booked solid again, but these guys are pretty fast if you need something real quick.
Yeah.
But that was what AJ from Moore Engineering said, that these guys would be willing to do some outside work while they're in the area and they have all their equipment here. So if
They're
you're
not
not,
these shysters that come through, are they? Like
well, they're from
Southern's out
Minnesota,
there.
they're not, I wouldn't say they're shysters, but they are coming through. They will go back to Minnesota, I believe, where they live.
Is there anything else?
I think it's more blacktop, if anybody needs blacktop, probably.
You think they would go just like past the cemetery, like all the way up to
Another
Tennis?
Yeah.
I'm sure if you paid for it, they'd be
Turn
happy.
left over 83,
If you paid for it, they'd be happy to.
Yeah.
right.
Just move the cemetery sign.
I suppose, yeah.
Yeah, maybe you just need to move a couple bodies closer to your place, a couple tombstones.
Yeah, then I'd have a cemetery.
These
around.
are signed.
Oh, they're already
They're all
on.
signed, yeah.
No sign.
You got the utility permits in here too?
I think they're all there.
Should've all been in a pile right
They're all in
there.
that pile.
You know what I did, while
Well,
we're
we
still
could
here,
adjourn the meeting, could we not?
I had a little, I
Well,
had
we're looking at the
another.
bills yet, so I would say no.
Yeah.
Yeah, the city was kinda wondering if the sheriff's office with one of their vehicles would ever wanna give us a deal on a vehicle for the airport. You know, they have a courtesy vehicle out there for people who fly in, to be able to use to come to, and the thing that's out there is full of ice, taped up windows, I mean, it's a disgrace, it's an old, it's, oh, yeah, it's horrible.
It isn't a real.
We could keep
The
the
real
sheriff's
deal.
vehicle back there. We use here, they can sell this
And
one.
that's the thing, it doesn't have to be anything pretty, it just,
See,
it's the first impression some people get when they land at the airport, and the one that's out there right now is like the Clappets, or, it's like, oh my god. They actually were told, I think they told the city guys to hide it, and I went out there to look at something at the airport, and, it's sitting right there beside the hangar, and I'm like, oh my
That
god,
would be
window was
pretty good.
cracked open, it was raining.
Ours has over 200,000 miles on it, be kinda nice to get a,
Get a what?
ours has over 200,000.
Was that handed to,
That was from the sheriff's office.
and it was given back
Right.
to the county?
Right, we just didn't trade it in.
See, and I know
so-
when you had mentioned, I had mentioned something to
The old
Larry,
white one, yeah.
he said Chris's vehicle you don't want, because they've had nothing but trouble with that Tahoe or whatever that one is. But maybe the next one, I know you had said, well, maybe we should take that, because that one that you guys have, if we could figure out a price, wouldn't be a big deal, because it's not something where you're talking the airport's 2 miles out.
Right.
It's not something where they're driving 1,000 miles with it, so it
Right.
really doesn't, it's just gotta, that one looks, you can't, I should send you pictures, your mind would be blown if you
Well,
see
it's
the
got
courtesy
lights
vehicle we have
underneath
out
it.
there.
This one out here had a mouse in there. Couple employees that were out doing some tax director work, whatever, kept some food in there. The next day
Oh.
they're like, oh.
Yeah.
That's all it takes.
Some
And
some
then it-
states
and
have
then-
bear
That's all
problem.
it
Then
takes.
this
Food, we have
baby
mice.
this mouse had babies in the back.
Oh.
It took me almost a year to go in that vehicle
Oh.
after that.
You
I
don't get 'em
can't,
out.
I can't stand.
You don't
it
get them
anymore.
out.
No, once
Watch
they're
it.
in there.
Once
I
they're.
would be surprised if there has
come
never
back.
been any people that land at the airport, go to the courtesy vehicle, turn around, get back in their plane and fly somewhere else. I would know that. That's all.
That's funny.
It's bad.
Craig had to work hard to get that vehicle, that smell and everything on it.
Oh, I'm sure. Get it,
And even after I drove it the next time, I was feeling
That's
something
the
down
one
on my
we-
feet.
that's the one we took to the sixth county, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like when you get it, you want someone to feeling it.
What is it stinking?
Not anymore, Craig did a good job,
Got her cleaned up.
he cleaned it up. It's just the thought of knowing that there might be a mouse in
Not
it.
to speak of mice, I had a damn cat open one time on a tractor and had to run the wind to get parts. And I had the door open,
Yeah.
and I was at the back window, and a male cat got in there. And the door closed, and that son of a bucket was hot and pissed all over that cab.
Take years to get
Oh.
that up.
You
Turn
gotta
it
strip
off.
the lining out, you gotta strip the cab off and get rid of it.
Yeah,
When it would get hot, it was unreal in there,
and you can always smell it,
always.
yeah.
Like I said, some states have a little trouble with bears, we have, you leave food in the car or anything else, it's a mouse.
Yeah,
Terrible. Yeah, I've had vehicles I got them out of, but they come back.
They disappear.
Seems like they smell that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
How is that ugly?
this one,
At least a rat won't disappear on
Craig
the way,
did a good job.
mice will.
Did the cat survive?
I don't know, if I don't know which one it was, it wouldn't have survived, you know? It was a fairly good tractor. I could've killed
Oh, gee.
And that male sick man is unbelievable.
Oh, it is.
You can take them off the graphic.
They like to get up, they do that on our step, I know Debbie,
Yeah.
she gets,
Do they?
she goes after them. I never catch
Tell her,
them,
but there's a, I'd love to see her going.
she never catches them when they're in the act. Yeah, but it is a really raunchy,
Oh, man,
strong.
I had one.
Then I can about
We were
picture that.
kids, I got a brand new green goose style coat as a kid, you know, Christmas.
Yeah,
We had a Siamese male cat,
yeah,
and came down and pissed on that coat, and you could never get it out.
never could.
Never. Dry clean, wash.
That's just give it to the cat.
Give it to the cat, yeah. But I was unfortunate, I had to wear the son of a gun, it was the only coat I had.
Yeah, that, yeah, yeah,
Really.
yeah.
I
We all done, guys?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, second.
Second.